everybody, and welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm your host today, Paul Gebhard, with my special guests, Jim and Dan Vitu. And yes, they are father-son,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Vitu Financial Services, shall we?
Sure.
A bit of a family atmosphere, I understand, right?
Right.
It is, yeah.
Describe it for me. If I'm a client that shows up for the first time in your office, what do I expect to?
How about I take you through the process?
I like it.
We're a small family-run planning office. So your first visit, you come in with no checkbook. You come in with whatever you're comfortable bringing. And the whole idea is it's a conversation.
Okay.
We have a conversation about retirement planning, which is a huge topic, I understand. And I know it's very scary for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is to make it conversational. So what happens is you come in, we'll give you a cup of coffee, maybe a cookie.
Okay,
Probably
hold
not
on
a cookie.
second.
Dan's in good
Hold
shape,
on.
so probably not.
How good is the coffee?
Coffee's very good.
The coffee's good. Okay, we got to make
Very
sure.
good coffee.
Got to make sure.
So
Standards, Jim. Standards.
Right.
First impressions.
We try
Yes.
to keep it light and fun.
Okay.
I know these are serious topics, so we take care of that. But it's really just trying to figure out who you are as a person or a couple, and then what are we trying to do? What are our goals? What are our aspirations? Where are we in the process? Are we just starting? Are we close to retirement? Do we have a few years to go? Are we in retirement? There's a number of people that'll come in to talk to us that have been retired for a number of years, and they just want to make sure they're on the right path, because that's really what retirement planning is making sure you're on the right path to avoid the pitfalls that might really clobber you down the line. So the first meetings, they're all very conversational, but the first meeting is a conversation. You bring what you're comfortable with, we go through that, and we just start taking notes and having an interchange. And then from there, we can go to more of a planning component, if you will. And we address all the important things, the tax planning and Social Security planning and all those things. But it's really just about getting to know you. And by the same token, you get to know us. Maybe we're a fit, maybe we're not. But it's worth a conversation to find out.
I'm a big believer in comfortability. When that first process starts, I want to know that I'm comfortable.
Right.
That starts with the environment, the people, right? But if I show up in my flip-flops and a box just full of a mess of papers, I mean, you know what, guys? I'll be honest, some of the stuff I've kind of put away because I don't know if I want to see what's in it.
Right.
Right?
That's typically how most people come in. You know, they've got this big box of statements they've been saving year after year, and they realize that it's probably time to start organizing some of this stuff. So that's a lot of times the biggest part of that first meeting is just organizing things, saying, okay, you know, this is from 1980, we don't need this anymore, and you know, these are the current statements, and just figuring out what you've got and how we can start planning.
You must have been looking through my box. This is from 1980. Wait a second.
You had 5 different jobs over the last 25 years, and you got a little retirement plan here, and maybe you have a pension, and you have this, that, and the other. And it's really just trying to get you organized, trying to get you to start looking at, okay, well, here's the different sources I have. How are we going to make a retirement income out of this?
Yeah.
Other people are kind of opposite, though. Other people will come in with that plan, just looking for a second opinion, saying, hey, can you stress test this for me? And, you know, I have some doubts that I'm in the right thing here or there, and that's perfectly fine, too. You know, that's just a little farther down that path.
So bottom line is, it's a non-judgment zone. Come as you are and have the conversation.
Right.
Without question.
You don't care if I show up in a three-piece suit or flip-flops. You just want to help out.
We probably are more comfortable with the flip-flops, but, you know, if you want to wear suits.
My limo driver shows up.
Right. We don't have a typical client. We have all shapes and sizes. It's not a one size fits all. Every plan is tailored to that person or to that couple.
Yeah.
And that's the process. It's. I know it sounds canny and it sounds hokey, but it is a family-run practice, and we do hope you become part of the family.
I love it.
Because we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or we try to with serious topics, but we try to have fun.
I love that approach. I mean, I'm with you. You can call it hokey, call me hokey, but I believe we're all related somewhere down the line anyway.
Right.
We might as well just start treating one another that way.
Right. Great.
But if you need to borrow money, call my cousin. Don't call me. No, I'm just kidding. But back to, again, we have fun. Just so you know, it's fun, right? Because, look, we understand, right, guys? It's stressful. I mean, retirement planning and adjusting and what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Did I make a wrong decision there? Look, I understand all the questions. I know you guys understand them too, that people are asking out there.
It's for a lot of people, it's paralyzing. that the task they see ahead of them is so daunting, because I use the expression, they don't know what they don't know.
That's right.
You know, it's like, oh, I'm 62, I'm going to file for Social Security. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe it's not. Or, you know, I have these different accounts in different places. Which one should I get money from first? And there is a strategy involved in that. And then how do all these pieces fit together? So it's a bit of a puzzle, and we help you build the puzzle that fits the best for you. And I know things are going to change over the course of time. Everything, what do they say? The only thing constant is change.
Absolutely.
So and taxes. So and that's another piece. How do we adjust for taxes? So, you know, there's a bit of tax planning that takes place with all this stuff. And I know they're very serious topics, and I know they take very serious consideration. But we try to have fun along the way, because you've worked for such a long period of time, most of us. Now you're supposed to be entering the financial peace of mind stage, which isn't having all the money in the world. It's having the freedom to not worry about money all the time.
Yeah.
And if you've taken the time to kind of set that plan, that allows you to have fun, because there's nothing worse than people coming in and saying, you know, okay, I'm retiring tomorrow, what do I do? It's, you know, okay, if you have that plan going into retirement, then we can have those fun conversations, and it can be just about, you know, catching up on the fun things that you've been doing instead of just getting down to the nuts and bolts of the actual plan.
I think that's a phenomenal point, Dan, is the reality is what makes life fun is when you do kind of planning, you do kind of have things put in place, and it gives you the freedom is what you're talking about. You've taken the time, you've done the work, you put the strategies together, and now you get to enjoy it a little bit.
Well, it's funny because we do have those people that come in that are retiring on Friday, and they haven't set a plan. So it's maybe not so much fun initially, but we've got a lot of pieces, parts to make sure are taken care of. So that might be a little more serious, but then eventually, you know, we start talking about the goals and what do we want to do with what I call the next chapter, the second chapter of our lives.
Yeah, I love that.
It isn't retirement, you're out to pasture.
Yeah.
It's no, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
What fun things do we want to try? What have you always been interested in? Maybe you want to go back to school. I don't know. It's up to you. Maybe you want to take up art of some form, sculpting or painting. How do we help you get there?
And those are the kind of questions that we can answer. You know, we don't have those answers as to what is that next chapter.
Great
so that's
point.
what we ask to come in with is an idea of, okay, this is what I want to do. And that's something that should be fun to think about for that, you know, for that guy or gal that's coming in is what is the next chapter look like?
And again, it's different for everybody.
Yep.
And it's a no judgment zone. Bottom line is share your dreams, share your visions. If you're like me and you just want to be a silly kid again, great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Fine.
The bottom line is you get one life. Favorite thing I ever heard from, I don't know, guys, if you remember Mark Gastineau, he used to play for the Jets.
For the Jets.
His dad, Ernie, is like an adopted dad to me.
Okay.
And he says to me all the time, said, son, this ain't a dress rehearsal. And you know what? There's a lot to be said for just simple statements like that, because the reality is it's not.
Right.
And so guess what? You might as well enjoy it.
Without question.
You know, and decisions you make, of course you made bad ones. How do I know? Because I made them too.
Right. We all have.
That's the fact. So I want to ask you about a term today we hear a lot of, right? And people talk about this a lot. It's like, seems like it's a marketing thing now. Fiduciary. I mean, what's a fiduciary and why should that matter? And then why is everybody talking about it all of a sudden?
So, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, well, so a fiduciary basically just means that I have to act in the best interest of you, no matter what that means for me.
Hold on a second. We got to define that? I mean, shouldn't you basically be doing that anyway?
Exactly. You would think that. There's another standard that we won't get into, but we at Vitu Financial, we're fiduciaries. So as a CFP, I have to be. There's no doubt. I legally have to be a fiduciary, basically meaning that I just have to put ideas in front of you that are going to be the best for you. I can explain alternatives if you don't like that one, but I have to at least do my best to do what's best for you, no matter the ramifications for me.
Well, and okay, so that's what the regulations say we have to do. But as people, as planners, that's what we choose to do. It isn't because the government's making me do it that this is why I choose to do that. It's this is the right thing to do for people.
Ouch.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
It's just taking care of people and looking out for them.
Yeah. It's right up there with washing your hands.
Right.
Crazy.
To be told.
That's one of my favorite sayings there. You know, if common sense were common, there wouldn't be nonsense, right? So, I mean, we're talking about this stuff, though, because, you know, I do find it interesting that we have to be reminded of things that should be relatively obvious. Gosh, I hate to say that, but
And don't get me wrong, I'm not painting Danny and I as some special angels. There's
right.
plenty of great advisors out
Wait,
there.
you're
that
not
are-
special angels?
Well, maybe we are.
What the?
But,
I'm like, what are you doing here? No, I'm just kidding.
but there's tons of great advisors out there. So maybe we're just a second opinion for people, or if we're not the right fit, maybe we point you in a better direction
Yeah.
for you. Because a lot of this is just the personal fit. Do our personalities match yours? And if not, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for over 30 years, so I don't take offense to any of it. You can ask me any questions you want.
It's beautiful. We're having so much fun. I'm running right over the clock, right? I'm running right
Oh,
through.
yeah, okay.
So listen, bottom line is we're here to achieve something,
Right.
and that's to help some folks, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you share with them today what you guys are offering?
Yeah,
would you?
so we're going to put together that complimentary comprehensive retirement plan. So
Yeah.
we're going to take all of their stuff, their box of things, like you said, from 1980, and we're going to organize that for them. We're going to weave it together in a plan that they can take with them through retirement.
Just make sure you give my Starbucks wrappers back to me, okay?
Right.
I saved those from the 80s,
On the
okay?
commercial break, we'll go through start going through your
I love it. I love it. And but you know what? This is good stuff. On a serious note, here we go. It's about you. It's about your future. It's about peace of mind. And believe it or not, yes, your financials touch every aspect of your life. You know it. I know it. All you got to do is take a step. That first step. Take action, because you're in control of what happens next. The number on the screen, 866-356-8889. There's only 10 spots available. Put your name on one of them, will you? We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back after these messages.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go? And who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm your host, Paul Gebhardt, with my special guest today, Dan and Jim Vitu of Vitu Financial Services.
Yes.
Gentlemen, wonderful, wonderful information. I'm just talking about, hey, look, I can understand it. People have questions, they got concerns. Maybe they're nervous and anxious about it, but it didn't have to be that way. You just got to take action. Got to make sure you make a plan. And if you made one, at least make sure it's reviewed. So thank you for the good information. Wonderful first segment. Get into the second segment a little bit. I want to talk about something we haven't really touched on much, market volatility. And I want to talk about this because, well, I'm just a big believer. Everything that goes up comes down and vice versa, right? And we've been riding a pretty good wave for a very long time. I think I woke up, I don't want to like date stamp everything, but let's just be real. The market is like points away from an all-time high.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like, golly, that just seems like, how long can this go?
Seems like lately that's all it is. It's
Yeah.
steps away from its all-time high.
Yeah.
It'd be wonderful if the market always cooperated with us, but it doesn't.
No.
So, so as you're working, you know, when we have the market corrections that come from time to time, and the portfolio goes down in your 401k, what did you do? Did you stop working and panic? No. You kept right on working because that money wasn't needed that day. You were very upset that the market went down. Some people weren't that upset because they knew this was future money and the market would eventually come back. And more than likely it will, but there's no guarantee to that. But when you get closer and into retirement, all of a sudden, a market correction can be really, really problematic for your long-term future. So how is the portfolio positioned? We sort of have to look at risk in a different way than we would on what we call the accumulation side of the equation.
How so, Jim?
Well, what you want to do is you want to position your assets so that we're not as troubled by a correction, because we're not exposing ourselves to a long-term or a very deep correction. So how do we position our assets?
Yes.
What tools are available to do that? There's lots of ways to look at this, but the first thing you need to do is at least acknowledge that, okay, you know, the funds that I picked in my 401k 25 years ago when I started the job, and they've built me this nice 401k, they might need to be reviewed. Maybe we should look where we are, because I can tell you how I looked at risk 25 years ago is a lot different than how I look at risk now.
Yeah.
So it's more about, I've built a nest egg, so how do I protect that nest egg?
Yeah.
And it's really, for everybody, it's different. Some people, they enjoy the drama of seeing the market go up and down, and that's wonderful for those people. But other people are much more risk adverse, and we just need to make sure their portfolio is built around their desires, not some person or some machine's idea of what's best for them.
Good stuff. You know, I wanted to touch on something like that because I just want everybody, you know, out there to be thinking about that aspect of the market volatility, because I've seen people's lives ruined by hanging on too long on the accumulation side of this stuff.
Sure.
When they're getting closer to retirement. And that's when you kind of realize how valuable your time is. When you look back and see how many years you worked, how many years you contributed. Don't discount those years by hanging on to undue risk.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about here.
Right.
Make sure that you constantly reevaluate that.
Right. So we look at it from a number of angles, but we'll you know, obviously we go through a risk assessment with every client to make sure that their wishes and dreams and goals match up with what their portfolio is built to look like. A lot of times, well, it's not a lot of times, it does change over time. As we change, your portfolio should probably reflect that. So you need to constantly review that idea. But as we just approach different milestones, like, well, what's the portfolio set up to do? How is it set up to perform? Maybe it's set up perfectly, and then, you know, and your advisor's doing a wonderful job. That's great. More power to that person. So that's you know, sometimes that second opinion we can give just reinforces an already strong relationship you have with an existing advisor.
Yeah. And I do find, you know, don't you guys see sometimes from time to time in that second opinion mode, they could have an ideal plan. And you're right. Their advisor could be doing everything great. But sometimes you find that one little small thing that may not have been missed. It could have just been something that changed. Right. That could have a major impact on the rest of it. Because I think that's what a lot of us get lost on is sometimes we forget that this is all connected. Right. Every bit of our plan is connected in some way. You can't really disconnect any of it, can you?
No. And I mean, a lot of the time those second opinion conversations, that's all it is just pointing out, stress testing the portfolio, pointing out things that might need to be fine-tuned or might need to be reevaluated, whether that's by us or by the existing advisor. That's fine too. That's our job. So when they come in and they have those strong plans, we like to see that, to know that there are guys like us out there doing good work and setting up good plans for people. And when we see ones that need help, then we help the people.
Good stuff. I love that. I wanted to ask you guys a little bit. We got a little bit more time here before break. Real quickly, I want to touch on taxes just a little bit more, and I'll tell you why. Because everything to me, in some way, has to come back to taxes.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, and because in retirement, again, it's the overall impact that taxes have on that big nest egg that can really impact it significantly, sometimes reduce it by 30, 40%, right?
Sure.
So making sure that they stay engaged on a tax strategy is important too.
Right, and now we're getting to the fun part of the show. This is the part that people are going to want to turn up the volume because it's getting
tax time.
The disco ball will come down.
I know, nobody likes to talk about taxes. And we're not talking about tax preparation, you know, filling out your 1040s and that kind of stuff. Keep those tax professionals, they're needed. Yep. But we're talking about tax planning. You know, what's the most efficient use of our funds in the most tax efficient way possible? You know, as a Roth conversion of some of our assets, a realistic idea? Does it make sense? And I know just saying stuff like that turns people off.
Yeah.
And we'll try to simplify it as best we can, but come in and see for yourselves. We can answer any question you want. Even the questions you don't think you have, sometimes we can just bring those up.
Will pop up. And that's the important thing. Take advantage of the complimentary offer, right? We have a few slots available left. You get to meet with Jim, Dan, the family. Get to understand what your goals are. Make sure you're on track. All you have to do is claim your spot. 866-356-8889. We got to take a short break, but we'll be right back after these messages.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm your host, Paul Gephardt, with our special guests today, Dan and Jim Vitu of Vitu Financial Services. Yes. Guys, we're coming down to the last segment, and this is my favorite one, where we get viewer call-ins.
Oh, yeah.
This is our segment we call.
This is great.
Stump the Advisor.
Yeah,
Are you guys ready for that?
I hope so.
Things can get really high.
I hope so.
My job hinges on this. Yeah.
This is good.
I've done it for 30 years. I hope I can answer the
question. There's some good questions here. There's some really good ones. And I want to start off with Cindy from Westlake. Hello, Cindy, and thank you for calling in. Cindy wants to know, how do you keep track of so many different retirement and investment accounts for your many clients? Great question.
Is there a buzzer? We can
buzzer, yeah, you're in.
Yeah, just I got this one. So that's a great question because people typically have investments in a bunch of different places and everything like that. So I guess there's two ways to answer it. Keeping track of them is one thing, and planning is another thing. So keeping track, there's a lot of good software that even individuals can use. There's a couple that you can just find by going on Google and typing in, investment summaries, things like that, and that's great. In terms of the planning aspect, we use different software that will take those current investments and project those out and do some planning with those, using some very conservative assumptions and just grouping that together and saying, okay, using these assumptions, what does this look like in 30 years or whatever your time horizon is?
So you're talking about it can actually forecast to try to let them peek into their future a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
not a crystal ball, but
of course not a crystal ball.
Right.
But that's a very useful tool.
Yeah.
I mean, I would want to know, okay, what would this look like 10 years, 20 years down the road?
And that's one of the scariest things for people going into retirement is the idea of, okay, I've had this paycheck for the last 35 years, so I can plan around that every 2 weeks or every month. And I understand how that works. To suddenly now you're like, well, there is no more paycheck. How is this all supposed to work? So this giving you a forecast of here's where the money's going to come from. And here's when it's going to come, and here's when we're going to start these different resources. That's the idea of that path. So the idea is to take the scariness out of it. So, of course, things are going to change, and we adjust the plan as we go. But as long as we're on the path, we have to make minor adjustments instead of, boy, we didn't have a plan, and we spent however we spent for the last decade. Boy, now we look like we're running out of money. Well, that makes it all that much harder to then say, okay, well, we really have to do something with that. So it becomes a much more difficult conversation to have at that point. So if you get it done early or earlier, it's better.
Absolutely. It's good stuff.
Did we pass?
Yes, you did
We
good.
passed, okay.
Boom. And we went back to the
One for
power
one.
of time. So hopefully that helped you, Cindy. Hopefully that helped you. I'm sure it did. So Bob from Rocky River wants to know, what exactly is a retirement income gap?
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
boom.
You got it?
Buzzer.
Okay.
So, well, that would take a little more conversation from Bob
Okay.
to know exactly what he means by retirement income gap. But often so retirement planning often comes down to retirement income planning or monthly income planning.
Yeah.
So we have I use the analogy, or I use the example, say you take all your different accounts and they're all in cash, and it's just a big pile of cash sitting on this table. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have all this money. Well, are you going to spend it all today? No. What we need to do is determine what do you need on a monthly basis to make sure you never run out of money. So we start doing the planning from that perspective. We take the big money, the big pile, we boil it down to more of what's needed on a monthly basis. Maybe there's plenty, maybe there's a gap. Well, how do we make up that gap? So maybe it does become one of those things that, you had planned on taking that cruise for a month at retirement. Well, maybe that's not in the cards now. Maybe that has to be pushed off for a period of time till we get our other, let's call it house in order. Or probably the more unfriendly part of the conversation that we'll sometimes have is, I need to know what you're spending on a monthly basis in order to see if you have enough money that's going to last you the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's uncomfortable for some people, because some people come in and they know to the penny what they've spent for the last 43 years. Some people come in and have an idea. Some people have no idea. And that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It just means we sometimes have to have a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation to say, we need to know these things to build the best plan for you.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you mentioned uncomfortable, because to get to comfortable, sometimes you do have to get very uncomfortable.
Right.
But that's the point. That is the whole point to peace of mind. That's the whole point to financial security. We all know that money comes and goes, right? But one thing we know to be sure of, it touches every aspect of our life. I got one question for you. What do you want your tomorrow to look like? Find out today. Take advantage of the complimentary offer and meet with Jim and Dan. 866-356-8889. Thank you for being with us. Be well, everyone.